Welcome back. You're listening to Tuttle Talk. I am your host, Andy Tuttle, here every Sunday, 4 p.m. This month, National Home Safety Month. I think we're kicking it off in fine fashion with some of my favorite people, Michael and Fran Riggs, owners of FASTEX. It's First Aid and Safety of Texas. Guys, this is so important. They did a class for me and my group last year, and I was shocked at how much no one knew in that room. I believe you're going to learn some things today that could save a life, and I'm so excited to have with me here today some people with big hearts who care about people and who know what to do to help. So, Fran, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Andy. Great to be here.
Yes, and Michael, thanks for being here.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
Okay, so guys, I want to get into this. First of all, Fran, tell me a little bit about your background, what FASTEX is, and how you guys got this started.
First Aid and Safety of Texas is our company. Our mission is to help people be prepared for workplace emergencies, home place emergencies, wherever people gather.
So where did the idea from this come from?
Well, Michael has been in the industry for many, many years, first as a Marine Corps military policeman, paramedic, firefighter. Then he worked for a Fortune 500 company for many years in the first aid industry, and then we decided to strike out on our own.
Well, I'm glad you did, because there's a lot of good that you're doing out there. Now, Michael, you've been doing this, like she says, a long time. And where did your passion for doing this come from? Because this is not an easy gig. You were an MP in the Marines, right? And now you are a paramedic. So what made you take up this cause?
Well, I'm very passionate that we prepare people to respond appropriately. As a paramedic, too many times I've gone to a scene where people were not responding nor performing effective or efficient life-saving techniques. And it's my passion that we instruct people and encourage them, instill the confidence that they can perform this skill as they determine or actually demonstrate their proficiency in the skill.
Right. So there are some things and skills that, skills, you got to learn them. And I find that even in my own home, things as it relates to safety around the home, I'm just not skilled at. I mean, my kid's only 7 months old, and I just think I just didn't think about it. It's just not something we think about. But I think there's some startling statistics that will wake us up to the fact that we do need to pay more attention.
Absolutely. One of the statistics that really is eye-opening to me and to many of the people that I interact with is a question to you, Andy. How many children died in a fire at school in the past 10 years in the United States?
In the past 10 years in all the United States?
Correct.
I mean, honestly, my first answer would be at least a few hundred, if not thousands.
The correct answer is 0. However, let's change that question. How many children or school-age children died in a fire at home in the United States in the same time period of 10 years?
I don't know. I have no idea.
And that answer is 1,328. And the difference is schools have a plan. They have a written plan. They have a drill. In fact, in the state of Texas, public schools are required to perform a fire drill every 6 weeks.
Right.
0 kids have died in the United States from a fire at school in the past decade. However, those that perished in homes didn't have a plan. They didn't have working smoke detectors. They didn't have an emergency action plan, and they perished because the lack of one. And that's really where our passion is preparing homes, families, organizations, companies on how to respond to emergencies appropriately.
So from what I understand, and I remember what basically in the schools is, it sounds like the kids are prepared, right? The kids are prepared, and the kids aren't prepared maybe at home. So maybe I'm a little prepared, and I kind of know what to do in a fire. What is the danger, you know what I mean, like of my kid not knowing? And I remember some of this stuff from last year when you taught, but I've already forgotten actually some of it. So you know what I mean? Like where the biggest dangers come from at home? Why are those, you say they don't have a plan, but what is happening to those kids? Why are they why are they not getting out of the home?
Well, let's change the scenario that my daughter is 10 years old and she's not trained, and the smoke detectors begin beeping. Her initial reaction is going to find daddy. What if the fire's between my daughter and me? She very well may perish. But if she's trained to go to a point of congregation outside the home in a safe area that doesn't hinder the emergency equipment as it arrives, we all should meet there and then ensure that we're all safe and never enter a burning structure again.
That's a big one. Like, I guess, you think about your kid, they're not running outside, they're going to run to you. And if there's a fire in between, they're going to run into the fire. So how often do you need to do this kind of training, and what do you need to train them to do? I say you meet at a point of congregation, but how do they get there, first of all?
Absolutely. They should have means of egress, or two ways to exit their home, their room. One through the door, the other one through the window. Where do they meet? They meet at a point that the parents choose that is a safe point to congregate, or evacuation point, if you will. That's assuming they're on the first floor. Right. What if they're on the second floor?
Yeah, exactly. A ladder from sheets? You just tell them to tie the sheets and throw it out the window? There's
an emergency evacuation ladder that is made commercially. It can be bought at any home improvement store, that hangs from the windowsill of your home. That is made of, it's metallic. It's made of chain with metal rungs, where the children can learn to climb down from the second story room to a safe portion of their yard and then move to the congregation point.
So then what happens, and I don't know what age these kids are I don't know what the average age is of the 1,300 that died in the last 10 years, but what about like babies? Like, my kid's 7 months old. Like, what do I do if a fire starts?
Well, obviously, as a father, fire starts.
I'm running right to that nursery.
Absolutely. You run to the nursery, you wrap your child in a cotton blanket, and you exit as quickly after you've instructed your wife to do so also,
right.
And you exit the building as quickly as possible. We can't leave it up to the child to a certain age where they have been able to practice the drill and effectively meet you at the congregation point. I think it's a very important thing that we accomplish with this training.
What age, and I want to get to your training in a minute, you're listening to Tuttle Talk here on the Real Estate Radio Network. We are talking to Michael and Fran Riggs, owner of FASTEX, and we're talking about how to keep your kids safe, basically, especially in a fire. So what age is a good age for, what do they start training? Like, when do you typically start telling your parents to train kids?
Well, I recommend, obviously, if they're going to start kindergarten at 5, to start training at that point. From that point prior, the parents should take responsibility and retrieve their child and move them safely outside during an emergency such as this.
Sure. And so how often do you need to train? I mean, how often, like, as a parent, if I got a 5-year-old, how often should I be doing this? Once a month, once a quarter, once a year?
I would do it no less than once a quarter.
Okay.
And I would do a reward for it for the child. Kids love it. They'll participate in it. The other thing I think that's very important is that you practice with this emergency evacuation ladder. I've heard of a situation where a fire occurred. They had attended my class. They had put the emergency evacuation ladder under the bunk bed, still in its package, never opened. The smoke detector alerted at 3:10 a.m., and you can't expect a 5, 10, or even a 15-year-old child to be able to open this emergency evacuation ladder and understand how to use it.
Right.
You need to use it, and you need to practice it. So when the event occurs, you can respond appropriately, quickly, and safely.
Whew. Okay, so Fran, before we go to break here, what other things, because you're talking about this class and the training, and we're going to talk about in the next segment CPR and heart attack and the difference between a heart attack and cardiac arrest. But what other things do you guys teach on in your training? Fran?
Well, I want to circle back on what Michael was saying. I mean, these are just some examples of what can be covered in the training course, and everything is super customized and individualized. And in every course that Michael presents, there's so many questions about particulars, and that's why it's important to have a specialized, customized, personalized course so that your particular family issues and whether you have a 2-story or 1-story house can be addressed. We cover everything from medical emergencies to weather emergencies, fire emergencies, even to active shooter. So that's the customized
platform
approach that we take. So that we know what you want to cover, and that's what we cover for you.
Okay, and so then you do this mostly for businesses, or do you do this for individual families on a family to family basis, or is it mostly like businesses getting together and getting their employees together?
Well, because it's an imperative for companies to provide this because of OSHA compliance and just good business practices. It's a great fringe benefit to do this for your employees, and then they can take that home, translate that to their family application.
Boy, I love it. So if you are a manager, if you can make these decisions, whether you own the company, it's a small company, or the manager of the company, and you haven't done this for your employees yet, they will provide for you a free risk assessment.
Yes, sir.
For your company, how it's working in the company, right? Whether from first aid to the AED that we're going to talk about in the next segment to just general employee safety. And they will talk to your employees too. Michael will come out and he will do a 30-minute presentation and educate on. I tell you, when you did this for my group, I mean, all the questions we had, dude, we had scared parents in the room and they should have been, but boy, action was taken on that. And I think that is what the key is. So if you want that for your company and you want that free risk assessment with the presentation, call me 469-319-0660 or text 469-319-0660. Just text the words risk to that number, 469-319-0660. We will get them in touch with you, and they will make sure you and your employees are safe and taken care of. Coming up, we're going to stick with these guys. We are going to stick with National Home Safety Month, and we're going to talk about the difference between the cardiac arrest and a heart attack and what you can do that will literally extend just a few minutes of an opportunity for the paramedics to show up on the scene, and it may just save a loved one's life. So stay with us. I tried you with that one. Welcome back, Dallas. You are listening to Tuttle Talk here on the Real Estate Radio Network. I am your host, Andy Tuttle. Remember, if you want to get a hold of Fran or Michael Riggs, we'll talk more about that. Me or any of the professionals we talk to, call me or text me, 469-319-0660, 469-319-0660. Guys, you're professionals. You own a great company to help people with first aid, home safety. Also, you are working with employers mainly to help them evaluate the risk of their office space and help their employees live better, safer lives for their families, too. But, Fran, you brought up an interesting point. It's great. It's good business, but there's also something else to it, isn't there? Yes,
it is. It is really great, smart business decision. It's a standard business practice to provide first aid and safety training and programs in the workplace, but it is also the law. OSHA does require that.
So if they come out, so how do you know the percentage of businesses that are actually, outside of the a lot though? Because I know most businesses I don't know have a first aid kit. Then I walk in, there's definitely not one visible. Do we know how many are out of compliance at all?
We actually don't. Many people will go to a big box store and buy a first aid kit that they feel is adequate for their needs. It's unfortunately not packaged appropriately. Ointments, bandages aren't designed for the workplace and don't meet the OSHA standards when it comes to the minimum requirements for a workplace first aid kit.
Got it. So speaking of the workplace first aid kit, it is awesome. You installed one there. It's got all the stuff. It's got everything you need. And I don't know what those pills were. They were way better than the ibuprofen I have. It's like Pain Terminator or something. What's it called?
That's exactly right. Pain Terminator.
It's Pain Terminator, and it terminates the pain. It is, should have a picture of Arnold Schwarzenegger on that thing. It is like the Terminator. It really does great work. But you guys install that in the businesses, right?
That's right, and provide regular stocking service, on-site first aid service where we come back in and restock the supplies so you don't have to think about it. And that's such a much better system than the receptionist or front desk person has the big bottle of Tylenol in the desk drawer. That's typically the first aid program for most companies, and that's very risky.
So who are like some of your clients? Like what kind of ranges of clients do you have that this works for, small companies to big?
As far as numbers of...
Yeah, there's some of the companies that you work for, so people understand like who this is, and maybe they even work at a company now that uses you.
Sure. Some of our biggest clients, St. Jude Medical, DART. We service all DART locations. In the faith-based organization, from Prestonwood to Park Cities Baptist Church, all of Gateway. It's kind of a niche market for us,
right?
Where people are really concerned about ensuring that they have a safe environment for their members, their guests.
Right.
But we do plumbing companies, law firms, churches, sports facilities, fitness facilities is a huge segment of our company. We also have a niche in schools and universities like Baylor University and University of North Texas.
Guys, that's huge. You're out there.
We are.
So you're out there. You've established this is something new. You know what you're doing. And obviously the word is gotten out if you're working with those type of clientele. So here's the thing, guys. If you need them to come out, and I mentioned this in the last segment, and we're going to get into cardiac arrest and heart attacks here for just a couple of minutes, but just want to remind you, they are doing free presentations for you, 30-minute presentation. They're going to talk to you and do a risk assessment for your team. If you have a company, you've got at least, I would say, over 10 employees, small to start. I mean, I don't know, for a class at least, I would think. But if you've got a small company or a big company and you need to get your teams in there and need to get a risk assessment, call me, 469-319-0660, or text the word risk to 469-319-0660. I'll get you connected. We'll get these guys out there. It's big stuff. It's important stuff. It may save a life. I'm not kidding. This is a real deal. So, Michael, tell me real quick, what's the difference between cardiac arrest and heart attack, and why does it matter?
Well, it matters greatly. Let me just set the scenario. I collapse right now. I am not breathing, and I'm not conscious. 47% of the time, I'm suffering sudden cardiac arrest. 53% of the time, I am suffering from a heart attack. Unless you have a trained ear and you can palpate and feel the pulse, the rhythm.
You won't know either one.
Got it. Yeah. So the whether you know the pulse or the rhythm. Now you describe it. How do you say this? You say there's basically two main problems, two different problems.
There's two main problems when someone collapses. A sudden cardiac arrest is simply an electrical problem.
Okay.
Our brains are sending a signal to our heart currently, hopefully, some normal sinus rhythm. So our hearts are beating with normal sinus rhythm. What happens when most people suffer sudden cardiac arrest? The signal, when it reaches a heart muscle, causes the heart to go into a quiver, a spasm, if you will, and it's an arrhythmia. The heart does not circulate oxygenated blood. That window can be open from 3 to 5 minutes. And when I say window, the person is suffering sudden cardiac arrest for a term from the onset as short as 3 and as long as 5 minutes.
Got it.
An AED is what is the therapy for that. It's the only therapy for that. We turn the tables and say a heart attack is a plumbing problem. Your heart is a muscle the size of your fist, designed to pump blood efficiently throughout your body. And what happens when someone has a heart attack typically is the vessels become corroded, if you will, or they've narrowed because of buildup of plaque, fat, and lipids inside the arteries, therefore not circulating adequate oxygenated blood to the heart muscle itself. And the heart muscle begins to die, creates pressure on the chest, difficulty breathing, radiating pain up the neck, through the shoulders, down the arm. Those are symptoms of a heart attack.
So then what do you do? Like if someone, let's say you don't have an AED and I want to talk to you quickly, but in our brief time, what do you do? What's the first thing you should do?
The first thing you should do is make sure the scene is safe for you. It's not a hazard that has caused this injury and isn't present. It's not going to affect you. Number 2, you then should check responsiveness by tapping the patient on the shoulder. The patient doesn't respond. Someone needs to call 911. Someone other than you. You're the rescuer. Someone also needs to meet EMS at the curb so they can direct them exactly where the patient is. And immediately, you need to assess the patient's breathing. If the patient isn't breathing, you need to find the proper hand placement, which is instructed in CPR training courses, and begin compressions. 30 compressions, at least 2 inches deep, at a rate of 100 per minute. to the tune of Fran's favorite disco song, Staying Alive.
That's great. That works.
Yes, it does.
Okay.
And then somebody has gone for the defibrillator, too.
And that's the thing. So, guys, the AED, the defibrillator, this should be in every office, in every business in this great state and around the nation, but it's not right now. If you want to find out more about the AED or just want to get your employees educated on this and your own family, and you want that risk assessment, they can tell you all about this. You'll get the full class. You'll bring a little, you call it a dummy? A mannequin. You bring a mannequin. He will show you how the compressions go on the mannequin. He'll show you exactly what to do. He will teach your employees how to save a life, and he will set you up for an even deeper training if you want that, show you all about the AED and how to get the first aid kit. Guys, this is a don't think about it, just do it. Call me, 469-319-0660, or text the same number, 469-319-0660. Text the word risk. We'll get you set up for the free assessment, for the free 30-minute presentation for you and your team and all your employees to get you protected. Thank you guys so much for what you do, and thank you for being here today.
Thanks, Andy. Great to be with you.
You bet. Great to have you here. Thank you to all my expert contributors. Thank you to Keith today. He did a great job, and I hope you get that. I'm telling you, pest control is a big deal. You got to take care of it this year. And then thank you to my show producer, our production director, the entire family here at 660 AM The Answer. And thank you so much for listening to Tuttle Talk, where we're making financial intelligence a priority in the community. Have a great weekend.
You've been listening to Tuttle Talk on 660 AM. You can reach Andy at 469-319-0660. That's 469-319-0660. Or email him at answers@andytuttle.com. Don't forget to become a fan of his show by going to facebook.com/Tuttle Group. You can also catch previous shows by going to andytuttle.com.